Welcome to the podcast series during Retail Media Summit UK, brought to you by Kevel. We're coming to you live from London. I'm your host, Colin Colburn from the IAB. And in this series, we're sitting down with some of the industry's most forward-thinking leaders to unpack where commerce media is headed next. In this episode, we're going to talk about one of the most valuable yet overlooked currencies in retail media, trust. In a landscape that's been noisy, fragmented, and full of overpromises, Boots Media Group has built something quite rare, a retail media platform rooted in credibility, consumer understanding, and nearly 2 centuries of heritage. Joining me to unpack how all that happens and how that works behind the scenes, Matt Hanlon, Director of Omnichannel and Media at Boots. Matt's perspective is especially unique for leading the consumer media team at Boots. He held global roles at both PepsiCo and Nike, including time in the US, so he has both brand side and international experience. Matt, great to have you here.
Brilliant. Thanks for having me, Colin.
So the hockey stick has happened. Retail media, it's becoming a crowded and also more complex space. What do you think are the biggest misconceptions that exist today in the retail media space that make it complicated and complex?
One of the biggest misconceptions I find a little bit interesting that it still hangs around is that it's seen as a commerce media. For me, retail media should just be part of the broader mix of how you want to engage with consumers. Because fundamentally, it's just a different touch point. Instead of it being just I heard in the conferences earlier today, people talking about it at just this lower funnel piece. I think at BMG you see that it's not. There are ways in which you can build more holistic consumer marketing plans that touches on, more typical upper funnel, connected TV type moments, all the way through into a social to in the path of the purchase in store. So it is a broader mix. It's not just this commerce play. So that to me is the biggest misconception.
Yeah, that it's lower funnel only.
Yeah.
I think the conversation is starting to evolve there, where we're talking more about things like the store being a competitive differentiator and how that can drive better awareness, better brand discovery. I mentioned before that Boots is built on heritage, 177 years, which is incredible, especially as an American when you think about 177 years. How does that legacy translate into both trust and credibility that you guys have when it comes to the retail media world today?
When I look at my relationship with and why I was so fascinated about this role when I joined, there's a magnetism that the British consumer has with Boots. The heritage exists, but that heritage means nothing if it's not built on a foundation of trust. I mean, everyone knows a Boots, right? There are 100% awareness, but it's built on this trust that it is there for consumers when you need them, right? So whether it is a new mother who's looking for the right brands to sort of help them with their babies, or whether it's a pharmacy-specific moment that you have the right health brands to sort of come up, or if it's wanting to look amazing, night out, sort of beauty moment. Boots is there for each of those journeys, and it's in the right path, and that's what drives the engagement tension with the brand. And I think that's what's really amazing with, I came into this role. When you tell people you work for Boots, especially British people, it's amazing. Their faces light up. Yeah. They go, oh, wow, yeah, great.
That's awesome.
Such an amazing brand.
What has it been like? I mean, I mentioned before again that you have been on the brand side. What's it been like moving to the retailer side? And I'm particularly curious, when we talk about trust, one of the things I hear the most about is that there's a trust gap between retailers and brands. So I'm curious what it's been like being on the retailer side now, and now that you've been on both sides, where do you think there are mends that can be made between both?
So I will say, right, actually the bit I love about my job, right, and I sit across both the Boots media team, sort of the buy and the sell of the equation, right? So and the Boots media group. What's amazing is actually the conversations with suppliers and brands, because ultimately retail media as a dimension, it should be mutually beneficial for both the brands and for the retailers, right? If we're getting the right brands in the path of the right consumers at the right time, those brands should grow and so should the retailer. So the conversations are naturally more positive than I think I may have ever thought. And it's also aided by the fact that really Boots is in a very amazing position that no one really knows the sort of the health, wellness and beauty consumer that Boots does. And so those conversations with brands, it's not a sort of a fight in any way. It's a how can we build the best consumer moments that ladder into the sort of broader sort of engagement model.
You mentioned the health and beauty categories. What do you think is unique about health and beauty in the broader retail context versus other categories, and how do you think that helps BMG be able to differentiate itself?
There's natural positioning no one really has that sort of positioning as a retailer, especially in the UK. There's a considered shopping mission when people come into a Boots store. Actually, Rory Sutherland today gave the example, which was fascinating. He was talking about having baskets in more places around the store, because actually when you go into a store, you start to have more of a considered shopping behaviour, and that transcends categories, right? That can be a health, that can be a wellness, and that can be a beauty moment. And Boots, I think, is one of the only retailers that really brings that all together in a natural way.
Yeah. How do you guys think about connecting the dots between customer insight, attention, and ultimately growth? Like, what are sort of like the connection points between those areas?
Fundamentally, everything we do, and it's been great coming into the business seeing this, starts with a consumer insight in mind, starts with who you're trying to serve, and what it is you're trying to actually build as a storytelling with those consumers. And the reason why that's important, because if it all starts with a consumer interest, you're fundamentally going to be building plans that are meeting a need. That's what happens on a day-to-day basis. Brands are able to come and work with BMG and build on and sort of access the trusted relationship that we have with consumers, because we know and we're able to sort of put in the path the right brands at the right time for those consumers.
Yeah. I'm curious, on a specific consumer subset that we hear a lot about of Gen Z, how have you guys created and brought about trust with that specific demographic? Because we know that they are typically, from a very broad perspective, the least trusting cohort of consumers today. So what does that look like?
I think the most recent example is the work we've done in the beauty space, where we've put creators and influencers at the heart of the work. And that can be seen quite easy to sort of say, but actually what we've been able to do is do that authentically by allowing them to sort of work and create the stories that is right for them, because we know those are the voices that the Gen Z, for example, demographic, are going to sort of want to sort of learn and speak from and hear from. And that's fundamentally how we sort of build those plans. And then you can do that, you can layer in authentically the right brands that those people want to sort of really engage and work with.
Yeah, what do you think it's interesting when it comes to creators and influencers, how that is a really natural, and we're already seeing this take shape in terms of integration between retail media and the broader creator economy. What does that look like in, I don't know, a year or two from now? Like, are they going to be even more integrated? How? Are retailers going to be kind of intermediaries between creators and brands?
I would love to get to a world, though, whereby influencers are measured with the true full impact that it can have, right? So yeah, there'll be, there's capabilities in the marketplace like storefronts and stuff like that will allow you to sort of bring the store window through the lens of the creator. But actually what I think is really going to be exciting in the next year or two is how do you build out the sort of longer term effects and measure those longer term effects. Actually, I think Kantar came out with a study just recently that was talking about actually the long term effect of having the right partnerships. It's not about just spreading yourself thin, it's about making sure that you identify with the right voices in the marketplace and let them help champion your brand. That's, I think, the future. I think that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. We talked a little bit about the data that a Boots has and how that really is built around trust. Part of trust is respecting consumer privacy. How have you guys balanced the sort of need to be able to have a rich data set on your most loyal customers and respecting of privacy?
Yeah, it's fundamental to everything we do, right? We spend a lot of time making sure that the privacy and confidentiality of how that data is used in the right way. Ultimately, it's really, loyalty programs are best placed when they're used to sort of help aid marketing connections and storytellings. And it should be beneficial on both sides of the equation, right? If you, Colin, have your data and there's signals that we can be able to sort of speak to and react to, we should be able to make sure that actually, Colin, on your current journey, these are the right brands that you want to be engaging with, so that you're sort of trying to sort of clear through the noise. That's how I look at loyalty data, and that's exactly how we sort of try and use what we call the Boots advantage, which is that sort of unrivaled sort of knowledge around that health, wellness, and beauty consumer.
Yeah. What role is trust going to play in the next sort of growth phase of retail media? So we've had, again, this hockey stick moment. Now we're kind of what I call is like this maturation phase of like not a full plateau, but the growth has slowed a little bit. And what's going to happen is as we mature, then we're going to hit that next hockey stick, and that's what I believe at least. How's trust going to play a part in that maturation and getting to that next hockey stick?
At least from a Boots point of view and from a BMG point of view, we truly value the trust that our consumers put with us, right? As the number one trusted retailer in the UK, we know that is an amazing position to be in, and it's all about making sure we respect and serve that trust and provide consumers and sort of capture the attention of those consumers as a result of those journeys we want to build with them.
Yeah. Matt, this is an awesome conversation. I think 3 key takeaways from this one. One is that trust and heritage kind of go hand in hand, especially when it comes to an organization like Boots. The health and beauty category is such an interesting one to look at from a retail media perspective, because not only is there interesting data, but there's also, you mentioned influencers and creators and just the broader sort of wellness trends that we've seen take place. It's a category that I think is kind of a leading indicator for where retail media is going. And then the last thing I would say is that, the privacy pieces that you talked about are just so foundational to be able to even say that, trust is kind of like a core tenet of an organization when it comes to retail media. Matt, thanks very much.
Well, this is great. Thanks very much.